Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message, it reads like this. Hello my brother, can you please post for me his hidden identity? I have my own confession that I want to share with you. There are things that I did, and all of these things that I did, they are really nasty. These things, Brother Nashi, it is between my family, even though my late wife, when she got married to me, she then found out that I was someone who was heavily involved in these rituals. And she agreed. She said that for a little while, it is far much better to enjoy life than to live a life filled with poverty. When I was about to get married, that was when my father told me that he wanted to have a meeting with me in his bedroom. So I then went into his bedroom and he started speaking with me. So my father had a very big bedroom, and in his bedroom he had this other area. Growing up, we used to call it his office space. Only after he had taken me into his so-called office space, that was when I found out that this was no office at all, but it was just an empty room. When we got into that empty room, my brother, what I saw truly terrified me. There were a lot of bank bills, and this money that was lying on the floor, it was from different parts of the world, but the majority of those banknotes, they were from our country. So underneath those bank bills, underneath the money that was lying everywhere, there was a red cloth. But this red cloth, it was not a very big cloth, and in the middle of that cloth there was a red burning candle, and there were a lot of eggs. Not knowing where these eggs were coming from, those eggs, Brother Nashi, they were big, huge, like ostrich eggs, and they were all over the place, but they were in the middle of that cloth that was surrounded by a lot of banknotes from different parts of the world. Then there were some idols. These idols, my brother, they represented very strange creatures. I don't think that one can ever find those strange creatures. Then there were some animals that were inside a plate. These animals, Brother Nashi, even now I have tried to understand them, if they are real animals or if they are animals that can only be seen because I am a ritualist. When you are looking at these animals that are very difficult to describe, it will be like the whole earth will be revolving around these creatures. The more that you look at them, the more that you get disorientated. So my father then pointed at those animals, and he briefly told me that these animals, the way that they draw you towards them, that is the way that they draw money from different parts of the world. These creatures, he claimed that they can even go inside a bank and they can get the money from the bank, and after getting the money from the bank, then the money will be just deposited into his so-called office that was inside his bedroom. Throughout the night, my father performed a lot of rituals on my body. After he had performed a lot of rituals on my body, what he then did is that he took one of those large eggs, like those ones that look like ostrich eggs that are always in the middle of that red cloth that is surrounded by banknotes that are from different parts of the world. He then told me to kneel down before him. He said some prayers that I could not understand at that time, but what he was doing is that he was dedicating my soul and he was dedicating my life to that altar that I was kneeling before. He then took that egg and he proceeded with breaking that egg on top of my head. There is this other spot on a little baby's head whereby when you look at it, you can see that it will be moving up and down, up and down. This is what happens to me, Brother Nashi, and I always make sure that when I go outside, I always wear, if it is a hat or a cap, so that people won't notice that there is something that is going on with my head. when he had done breaking that egg on top of my head, he then blew off the candle. He then gave me matches to light up the candle again, and he said that the ritual had been done. I was now like him. My brother, from there on, I can say that that was when I started to experience a lot of good luck in my life. Anything that I would touch would turn out to be gold. My father didn't give me any money when I started my own little business. He told me that he was going to give me a present that was going to help me for the rest of my life. He had promised me that he was going to give me this present of mine on my wedding day, but when the wedding day passed without me getting this gift, I then spoke with my father and I asked him why he had not yet given me that wedding gift that he had promised me. And this wedding gift, my brother, it was in form of a car. My father then told me that he wanted to speak with my wife first. So I called my wife and then my wife spoke with my father. That was when it was revealed to my wife that as a family, we are a family that uses a lot of charms to get this great wealth that we have. And my wife, she then agreed. That was when she told me that it is far much better to be involved in this thing of using charms to be rich than to suffer from poverty. So the same ritual that had been done on my mother, that was the same ritual that was done on my wife. What they did is that they took my wife, but on that day I was not allowed to get into my father's bedroom because she was going to be placed inside a coffin, and after her death there was another ritual that was supposed to be performed, so I was not allowed to see the coffin in which my wife was going to be buried with. My wife was then taken into my father's bedroom and straight into that so-called office of his. My wife was then placed inside the coffin and a lot of rituals were done, and my mother was there. My mother also told me that the same ritual that was going to be performed on my wife was the same ritual that had been performed on her after she had started dating my father. So I was not supposed to get worried or anything. After this ritual had been done, me and my wife, we continued living our life. Many years went by until one day I saw my wife going to attend this other church. And this thing, it had not yet happened in reality, but deep down in her heart, it seemed as if she had a lot of guilty feeling. So she wanted to give her life to Christ. And I could not afford to let my wife go to a church. Maybe if she was going to give her own testimony, we don't know what the church was going to do with the testimony, since we are a family that is well known. So I then spoke with my father. At that time, my father was in his old age. He could not properly walk anymore. When I had spoken with my father told me that anyway, my wife was about to die, but still we had to make other plans before she could go to church and give out the testimony that will end up exposing our family name. My wife then died. It was just a short illness. She was diagnosed with cancer. Then she passed away. When my wife passed away, immediately we removed her body from the mortuary and we took her to another mortuary. And this mortuary where we took her, it is a family friend, and he was the one who was going to give us the space to do whatever we wanted to do with my wife's body. When we had buried my wife already, we had spoken with the gold diggers that were responsible with the digging up of my wife's grave, and a lot of money had been offered to them. So they went home and they came back. Then they started digging up my wife's grave, and late at night, that was when me, my father, and some of his friends drove to the place where we had buried my wife. By the time that we reached the graveyard where we had recently buried my wife, those men that were grave diggers, they had quickly dug up my wife's grave, so much that they had already reached the spot where her coffin was. I then instructed them to take out the coffin out of her grave, and after that, that was when we told them that they had to walk around whilst we continued with whatever that we wanted to do. One of my drivers then took those men and they went and they stayed in the car, and our cars, we had parked them at a distance because we didn't want these grave diggers to see what was about to happen. We then proceeded with removing my wife's dead body from the coffin, and we placed it just on top of the soil that had once covered her grave. That was when I started to have sexual intercourse with my wife. For a moment, when I was having sexual intercourse with my wife's dead body, it felt as if my wife had returned back and she was now alive, because she was even able to move her hands, and I felt her hands on my shoulder. After me being intimate with my wife's dead body, we then called our driver. We then went and he took those grave diggers, and I instructed them to place back my wife's coffin back into her grave, and they proceeded with filling up the grave again as they had done in the afternoon when we had came to bury my wife. Then we returned back home. When I returned back home, what I had to do, Brother Nash, is that for about a week I was not supposed to bath myself, but I had to sleep around with different women. So as I'll be busy sleeping around with different women, in that way I'll be cleansing myself, and I'll be leaving that spirit of the dead on those several women that I would have slept with. So for a week, Brother Nashi, this is what I did. I had a lot of girlfriends that I had been dating. I started sleeping with them without bathing. Like today, I would sleep with someone, like in the morning I would sleep with one of my girlfriends, in the afternoon with another one, then in the evening with another one. This went on for the whole week, and after I had slept with one of my girlfriends, then I'll proceed with dumping that girlfriend of mine, because after sleeping with her I was not allowed to sleep with her again, because by sleeping with her, then I'll be inviting the spirit of the dead back into my life. These are some of the rituals that I did in our family. A lot of rituals take place. Like for instance, if we buy a new piece of land, a lot of rituals are done. There are many times when I have seen my father going to buy a coffin. This will be after he had purchased a land. It does not matter that the land that he would have purchased, it will be in the city or in the villages. After he had purchased the land, he buys the coffin, and they will bury the coffin at the place where he would want to develop new office buildings. These things, my brother, it is always done in the evening without the knowledge of the local people. Right there was a message that I received from our dear brother, who is saying that he comes from a family of property developers. Strange things do happen in this world. Just imagine that in the middle of a mall, first before there is even a mall, then a coffin is buried underneath. Let's meet again in the following episode.